do that? Well, we learn to recognize when someone is tweaking the evidence. We've seen this over and over again with Bart Ehrman. I've said over and over again, Bart Ehrman, when he's giving the facts, is generally accurate. It's in the interpretation and the balancing of those facts and the drawing of conclusions from those facts. That's where things get just a little bit on the odd side. And that's what we need to recognize, that even in kindly older men like James Brownson. So what I want to do is I want to start with a quick, I'm not going to be able to go as in-depth as I have in the past, but a quick run through Romans 1 to remind us what the issues are and what the flow of the text is about. Then we're going to listen to Brownson. And I want you to listen to his presentation and listen to it carefully, not with such a level of bias and prejudice. I mean, some people say, I can't even listen to him. No, you've got to hear them out to be able to, in a meaningful sense, document their errors. It really bothers me when people, I just can't. Well, I guess I can understand that in some context, but not in this context. We've got to be able to understand. So let's remind ourselves, grab a Bible if you can. If you're running on the treadmill, that might not be a good idea, but let's remind ourselves, Romans chapter 1, the beginning of verse 18, Paul begins his explanation of the bad news. He's introduced the gospel, but to be able to explain what the gospel is the good news, but the only way to understand the good news is you've got to start with the bad news. And the bad news is that man universally is under sin. And in Romans 1, you have the general condemnation, not just of the Gentiles, but of all mankind. Now, a lot of people, I think, completely confuse this because they go, well, Romans 1, he goes after the Gentiles, and Romans 2, he goes after the Jews. No, he goes after all of mankind in Romans 1, but the condemnation that he brings is consistent with the entire Jewish worldview. It is soaked in the biblical worldview of God as creator. It derives its very foundation from Genesis chapter 1. And so the Jewish person hearing Romans 1's going, yeah, go Paul, keep whacking away at them Gentiles. And Paul has to turn to them and say, hey, just because you possess God's law doesn't make you righteous before God. Simply possessing it and not doing it only brings you greater condemnation. And so you have to then move on from that point and recognize that he then deals the Jewish issue. And then in chapter 3, he ties it all together. And his conclusion is, we conclude that God has subjected all people under sin. Jew and Gentile. His whole point is he does not want there to be any basis for there being a Jewish Christian church and a Gentile Christian church. Paul over and over again emphasizes, in fact, the very background of Romans chapter 3, when it says all of sin comes short of the glory of God, the whole point there is the all there is not universal sinfulness like we always use it. It's Jew and Gentile. We've all fallen short of the glory of God. And he wants to make sure there is absolutely, positively no foundation for any concept that there would be a Jewish Christian church and a Gentile Christian church. Very, very important to recognize that he's doing that. So I guess I should switch sources for you here. I apologize. And give you accordance here so you can see that. Is that working for you? You got... Okay. Sorry about that. I forgot about that, but I figure if I'm going to be reading the text quickly, it would be good to be able to throw that up there as well. Got it? All right, good. So let's take a look at the text here, and I'm again not going to be able to go as fully into this as I would like, but there you go. Oh, you went and switched right back to me while I was silencing my phone. Thank you ever so much. Really appreciate that. Nothing like looking at the camera before you switch back over there. All right. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who suppress the truth and unrighteousness. Again, the wrath of God is being revealed at all times. It is not just simply something that is going to be in the eschaton. It is present tense. It is being revealed right now. And it is against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, not just Gentiles, but of men. Now, someone might say, oh, yeah, but they are the men who suppress the truth and unrighteousness, this just must be the Gentiles and not the Jews. Again, that's, I think, a gross misreading of Paul, and it is overthrown by his own conclusion in chapter 3. But the description of men is those who, and you'll notice in the Greek, the truth in unrighteousness suppressing ones. And so when you use the article here, this article goes with this phrase, right, this term right here. And so when you have an article, the participle at the end, you stuff stuff in between. It's a really cool way of making it very descriptive. And so it's the truth in unrighteousness suppressing ones. And so here is this description. And since God's wrath is revealed from heaven against all unrighteousness and ungodliness, so everyone who sins is involved in this suppression of the truth in unrighteousness. And as I've pointed out many, many times before, that phrase, katakanton, indicates that God's truth has been made known. It's not something we have to go searching for. It's something that is available to us right now. And therefore, it is something that can be held down, and man is accountable for that. And that's exactly what Paul goes on to say. For that which is known about God is evident within them, or you may notice it's en autois, amongst them. So it could be in them internally. It can be amongst them as a people. So there is the general revelation, which is what's going to be discussed in the next verse. But of course, the witness of the conscience, the witness of the universe around us, this is all part of what general revelation is. And it's God who has made it evident to them. So this is something that God has done. God has been the one who has revealed himself. God is not hiding on a mountain someplace and we have to climb up a mountain and find him. God is the one who has manifested himself in the creation of the world. And that's why verse 21 says, for since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes, his eternal power and divine nature, so his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood through what has been made. And then here's a very important phrase here at the end,